everyone, this is Left, Right and Centre and I'm Maria Shakil. Will adultery be a crime again? In 2018, the Supreme Court had struck down Section 497 of IPC that penalized a man for having sex with another man's wife. The court, in its landmark ruling, had then said that the adultery law was archaic and reduced a woman to just a man's wife and treated her like a man's property. Now, in what seems to be a retrograde move, the Parliament's Standing Committee on Home Affairs that has examined the three bills which are set to replace the IPC, which stands for Indian Penal Code, Code of Criminal Procedure, which is CRPC, and the Indian Evidence Act has recommended the restoration of adultery as a crime on gender-neutral lines. Their reasoning is that marriage is a sacred institution and must be safeguarded in the Indian society. The panel has recommended to make the law gender neutral and make both man and woman involved liable. The earlier law only penalized the man. Congress leader P. Chidambaram, who is also on the Parliament Standing Committee on Home Affairs, gave a dissenting note, saying that the state has no business entering the lives of the couples. Joining us now is Mr. Chidambaram himself to talk about the aspect and also on the overall issue of the legal overhaul. Mr. Chidambaram, really appreciate your time. I'm speaking to you after a very, very long time, sir, so thank you for this interview. When you were the Home Minister, your ministry also had carried out consultations on amending the IPC and CRPC. This is an ongoing process for over a decade. Then why call it a wasteful exercise?
Because it is not an overhaul of the law. In fact, I have pointed out that as much as 95% of the Indian Penal Code, 95% of the Criminal Procedure Code, and 99% of the Indian Evidence Act have been copied and pasted in the so-called new bill. Now, if 95% to 99% are a copy and paste, you certainly can't call it an overhaul. What they have done is utterly confusing. They have lifted whole sections with the punctuations and given them a different number. Do you realize what it will mean to thousands and thousands of judges, lawyers, and law students? Everybody, for example, me, at my age, I have to relearn the law. Now, we all know that Section 302 is murder, punishment for murder. Now, punishment for murder is intact. It's a copy and paste. But the number is different. 302 has become now 101 or so. Likewise, popular sections, even common man knows those sections, have all been lifted and given a new number. What is the purpose of this exercise? It is a completely wasteful exercise if 95% to 99% of existing laws are being copied and pasted.
Mr. Chidambaram, if you say that this proposed legislation is only a rearrangement of sections and of course, as most opposition leaders on this panel have said, that it will have many undesirable consequences. Give us a sense, in the sense that how is this exercise different from what you carried out as a former Home Minister when you were in office?
I don't know. I can't recall an exercise that was carried out. It may have been carried out at the officers' level in consultation. It never came to me. I don't recall having come to me, and I don't recall having applied my mind to a draft bill or a report. It may have been a very preliminary exercise. I can't even recall that. So there was no exercise in that sense like what is being done now. And certainly, if I was doing an exercise, I would certainly not copy and paste existing bills.
Mr. Chidambaram, you have protested the retention of the death penalty as punishment, continuation of adultery as an offence, provision of solitary confinement and inclusion of terrorist act in this Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. Why do you think these are problematic? One may say that a robust national security requires provisions for solitary confinement and even death penalty.
I think you and those who share your view, if it is your view, I hope it's not, those who share that view live in an outdated world. Death penalty has been abolished in many, many countries. In every democratic country, death penalty has been abolished. According to the data, the Supreme Court has affirmed the death penalty in only 7 cases in the last 6 years. Death penalty is reversed by the High Court, and even where the High Court confirms the death penalty in the so-called rarest of rare cases, the Supreme Court has confirmed it only in 7 cases in 6 years. That works out to an average of 1 per year. Then why have the death penalty? Why go through the painful process of a death penalty being imposed by the trial court, confirmed by the High Court, and set aside by the Supreme Court? It's a completely waste of resources, waste of judicial time. Secondly, imprisonment for life, for the remainder of a person's life, without parole, according to me and according to many criminologists, is a more severe penalty than death. Imprisonment for the remainder of a person's life without parole is widely accepted as a more severe penalty, and it also gives a small window of opportunity for the convict to be reformed. Now, death penalty does not give even a sliver of an opportunity for him to reform. Therefore, I think death penalty should be abolished. Most democratic republics have abolished death penalty, and we should follow those examples. Now, as far as adultery is concerned, now adultery is a compact between 2 individuals. If the marriage breaks down and the aggrieved spouse may sue for divorce or for civil damages against the partner. What is the business of the state to enter into the private lives of 2 individuals and say, I'll punish you? What has the state got to do with punishing a person who is committing adultery? Therefore, an adultery can be for many, many reasons. Adultery need not always be from uncontrolled carnal desire. Adultery can arise out of many reasons: living apart, working apart, not meeting each other often, out of impotence of the husband or the wife. Many, many reasons. Now, we can't sit here and judge whether the reason is good or bad. And adultery by itself is punishable, and I don't think the state has any reason to enter private lives and say, I'll punish anyone who has sex with anyone other than the spouse. Similarly, there are many provisions which are retrograde, and I pointed it out. For example, the power of solitary confinement. Now, what is solitary confinement? What does it lead to? In fact, by solitary confinement, you're only making a criminal a hardened criminal, and you also run the risk of letting him become mentally disturbed. You've got a criminal, you make him a hardened criminal, and he may be a mentally disturbed criminal by putting him in solitary confinement. Solitary confinement is no punishment. According to me, it's a cruel punishment. The Constitution bars cruel punishments, and solitary confinement must be abolished. Similarly, I pointed out several instances where the law, instead of reforming the law, has either retained the retrograde law or gone a step backwards.
Okay.
For
So,
example, on handcuffing, the law today is nobody should be handcuffed. Now, this law, the draft bill, provides for handcuffing in many, many situations, even economic crimes. I pointed out handcuffing is wrong. Justice Krishnaya pronounced handcuffing as a barred action. Even if you have to have handcuffing, it can only be in two instances. One, where the security of the police officers who are detaining him is threatened. He is a threat to the life or the limb of the police officers, or where he is likely to escape from custody. In these two situations alone, you should resort to handcuffing.
okay. Mr. Chidambaram, last question to you, sir. You know, the government has the numbers. So, what is the future of these three bills?
Well, the future of these three bills is if the members of parliament belonging to the BJP refuse to think for themselves and will be bound by whip, this bill will be passed in the Lok Sabha. In the Rajya Sabha, it will depend upon the parties which have traditionally supported the BJP. If those parties put on their thinking caps and either the party thinks for itself or allows the members to think independently, there is a good chance that we can force changes in some clauses of the bill. There's a good chance the bill may not be passed at all. It'll be a close call in the Rajya Sabha, while I concede it'll be a walkover in the Lok Sabha.
All right, P. Chidambaram, really appreciate your time and thank you for breaking down the details for our viewers. Let me bring in the other voice as well. Ashutosh Srivastava is an advocate of the Supreme Court. Mr. Srivastava, you heard what legal luminary clearly Mr. P. Chidambaram had to say. Do you think it's almost like going back in time with what the Parliament Standing Committee has done?
First of all, the Standing Committee is already studying it. It was introduced in August by the government, all the three new bills, and they are studying and they will come up with their conclusions on it. So far as my opinion is concerned, everybody agrees that, it's a colonial law which was made 100 years back. Indian Penal Code is, of 1860, then Indian Evidence Act in 1861, then 1973 amended, and Indian Evidence Act is also like 1872. So a lot of changes have taken place in due course of time. Now, if we see earlier, the form of the witnesses was only people who used to be taken into the stand, and they used to speak in the witness box what they have seen, what has happened. Now we have like a lot of electronic devices, and with these devices, a lot of things can be proved in any criminal law. Now these things have been included like section 65B and all in the Evidence Act, that if I'm submitting anything related to the computer, I have to give an affidavit that from which IP address I have collected this information, and what is this information about, what is the video about, what is the audio about. So all these things have been changing from time to time. Now, if we see the Supreme Court recently talking about section 124, that is sedition, the Supreme Court itself asking the government that what changes can be made, can it be struck down. So on that also the government is submitting their replies, and the things are already there before the Supreme Court. Like we have seen in section 377 of IPC, certain amendments were made. So these changes are already happening even by the courts. So the High Court or the Supreme Courts, Supreme Court has been considering this, that there are, some of the changes which are required.
The question is, why copy paste, as Mr. P. Chidambaram was saying, that, it's largely rearrangement rather than an overhaul.
No. I don't agree that it is simply copy paste. See, the substantial issue would be, reframed in a proper manner, or that can be taken together as what it was earlier. But there are, even if he says that 20-25% changes, if he himself agrees, that itself is a huge change. If you see now, if I have to lodge a complaint, I have to go to the concerned police station where the crime has taken place. Otherwise, my FIR will not be taken. Now, with these changes, a person can go and register the FIR, whatever is the nearest police station, and after that, the FIR will be transferred to the concerned police station, and the proper investigation can take place. Now we see that even in the jails, they are overflown with the under trial prisoners. There are shoddy kind of investigations by the police team, or maybe for any other investigating agencies. So all these things are required to change. Many of the people who are behind the bars, they have not been yet convicted by the court. There has not been any trial. They are just facing the imprisonment because they are waiting for their trial to get over. Now, in many cases, they are even acquitted by the court. So what happens? What happens to the jail term which the person has already been behind the bar during the course of investigation? So all these things have to change now with the changing time. Otherwise, it will become very difficult, situation. It will be a burden on our country and also in the legal system. That is why we have many pending cases also because of these kind of age-old laws, rules, and regulations.
Ashutosh, really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.